you have actually a dance background, and that's
I
something I wanted to talk
do.
about. I haven't really talked to you
Sure.
about this at all. So
Yeah.
where does that all start, and how did that play into who you are now?
Gosh, I always say my whole journey started with dance because it did really. My parents put me in ballet when I was 3 years old, and I grew
Okay.
up dancing competitively. So I was in competitions probably like every other weekend from like age, I'd say I started competing like age 5 to 18. And so, you can kind of imagine it's like competitive cheerleading or something like that, but in the dance world. So it's really its own world. And so I would train a couple hours a day after school. I had 3 or 4 hours on the weekends. I was training. Learning solos and duos and small group dances that I would then practice for months and then take on the competition circuit. And so I did that, and I danced ballet, jazz, tap, hip hop, like a whole bunch of different styles. And then I went on to dance professionally in college and got my degree in dance performance and choreography at San Francisco State. And then I went on to dance professionally in San Francisco for 8 years after that.
Wow.
And I was a contemporary ballet dancer and modern dancer. So yeah, it's been a huge part of my life, and that's how I really found all the other things I do now. I teach Pilates and yoga and plant-based nutrition, and I run teacher trainings and retreats, and all of it is really because I had all these injuries as a dancer. So around age 13, I had really severe stress fractures in L4, L5.
Hmm.
I had a really flexible back, and a lot of my dance teachers were like, "Oh, you're really flexible. Let's just have you do that one move over and over and over again." A lot of back bending, and so I had stress fractures form, and I was in chronic pain from age like 13 to 19 when I found Pilates, and I found Pilates in college, and during that entire time span, like 13 to 19, I was seeing chiropractors and physical therapists and acupuncturists and you name it. And no one was really giving me any solid solutions to like my pain and how I could basically rebalance my body so that I wasn't in chronic pain. And so this really threatened my dance career. Like I really
Yeah.
didn't think I was going to be able to dance past 18 because I just couldn't. I had Achilles tendonitis, hip tendonitis, stress fractures in my lumbar, like all different types of injuries. I'd rolled my ankles multiple times as a ballet dancer on point when you're
Mm-hmm.
using point shoes. And so just ruining my feet and ankles that way. And so I really hit a wall, and I went to college, and I was kind of like, I was just dealing with the pain, just dealing with it.
Yeah.
And so dancing through it, which is what a lot of professional athletes and dancers do. They just dance through the pain. And then I found Pilates, and within 2 weeks, it was required. Part of our training in our dance program was we had to do Pilates mat class every morning as our maintenance program.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so we were working with like tennis balls and foam rollers and the Pilates mat technique, and had some different equipment that they use in the Pilates method. And so after 2 weeks of using or of taking this class, my back pain vanished. And I was like,
Wow.
what? How come no one has told me this? No physical therapist, no chiropractor, no acupuncturist. Like, no one has said, you just need to learn how to use your body correctly. You need to know how to balance your muscles, how to realign the bones, how to open your fascial networks. Like, all of these things I was learning through Pilates. And I was basically rebalancing my body because dance
Exactly.
really throws you out of alignment. Like, you're doing all sorts of um, repetitive movements in ways the body isn't really designed to move. Like you're in turnout all the time. You're doing some
Yeah.
really extreme things that if you're not careful, you can really overuse.
Do you feel like it's like one side heavy? Like you spin to one side, or like there's torque on one hip versus the other.
Exactly.
There's a lot of that causes an imbalance?
Exactly. So as a dancer, I was very right hand dominant, and so
Okay.
though they have you do choreography or things across the floor, turns and jumps and stuff like that, they have you do it on both sides. But always there's a more dominant side that you tend to repeat over and over again.
Exactly.
Especially if you're a dancer in a company where you're learning, let's say, a specific piece of choreography for 3 months or 4 months straight before you actually perform it. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again for 4 months straight. So you might be
Got it.
turning to the right for 4 months straight,
Yeah.
and if you never do the left, then you're really creating some major imbalances. So, like one injury, for example, that I had, I was lifting a girl over my shoulder on my right side for 4 months straight. And so my right shoulder grew twice as large as my left in terms of strength.
And you're not a huge person, so that would be
Yeah,
like,
it was really and so it totally jacked up my shoulder.
yeah.
And so at one point, I got to a place, our final performance, where I couldn't even get my arm up above my head, and I had to lift this girl. We were doing like this lift, and so I tore something. I never got it checked out, which was stupid of me, but regardless, I had to let this arm completely atrophy for a couple months so that it would come back into balance, and use
Mm.
Pilates and yoga to really help me rehabilitate. And so that's Pilates and yoga really they were my maintenance programs. They were the things that helped me rehabilitate so many of my chronic and acute injuries.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, so were you teaching and dancing at the same time, or are
I
you? I guess
was.
a better question there is like, were you teaching dance as you were dancing? Was that your intro into teaching others?
Yeah, definitely. I started teaching at a really young age. So, age 16, 17, 18 in high school, I was choreographing the school musicals, the plays. We had a dance team at our high school as well. And so I'd choreograph for that. So I was really already in that teacher role from a
Yeah.
really young age. And I really loved dance. So it was obvious to me that that was a part of my path. I didn't really know if I was going to end up opening up a dance studio or teaching. I really just wanted to pursue dance in college because I knew it really, really mattered to me. And I was like, if all else fails, I can just open a studio and teach. That was kind of like my fallback
That's a
plan.
nice fallback
Yeah,
too.
fallback. I'll just open up a studio. And so I just knew I loved dance and I wanted to pursue it. And then, but in college, when I found Pilates, I think, a lot of us experience this where we have these really pivotal moments in our life that we learn something that changes our life forever, and then we want to share it. We want to
Yeah.
give back and share that same knowledge because I was so angry at the time when I found Pilates and was recovering from all my injuries. I said, how come no one taught me this?
Yeah.
And I didn't want anyone else to suffer the way that I had as a dancer or as an athlete or as just a normal, person moving throughout their day. Like, no one deserves to suffer in the pain that I did without knowing that there's a method that can radically fix their body so they'll
Yeah.
never be in pain again. They'll never have to sideline their career in movement, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Isn't
You
it
know?
funny? Isn't it funny how the first thing you jump to, and I have had some similar experiences with that, when
Yeah.
you realize that, you're like, why did no one ever tell me? Like the
Yeah.
first thing you do is get frustrated. Like,
Yeah.
this is simple. This didn't need to take this. I didn't need to take a decade to figure this out. Like,
Exactly.
I would have listened.
Exactly. And then, of course, once I figured out like there was this whole Pilates world and there was a dance medicine clinic at UCSF, and I said, so I learned this by going to college in San Francisco, but I had no idea that any of that existed until I
Yeah.
moved to San Francisco and saw these dancers going to a Pilates studio to heal their injuries and seeing them on the Reformer and the Cadillac and all the different Pilates equipment.
Hmm.
And so that's really what got me interested in teaching. So then I started assisting my teachers in college. I was like an assistant teacher to their Pilates classes. And then that's when I started teaching Pilates. I went through certification. And then, so once I
Yeah.
graduated, my Pilates program was what I would call like my master's program. I went in for a year and did like a super deep dive, learning the mat technique and all the equipment.
Wow.
And so then I started helping rehabilitate dancers, athletes, I also worked with like 70, 80-year-olds, people who are just dealing with chronic pain and just want to be like their most balanced fit self. So that's really,
I got
yeah.
that. Okay. Did you feel a shift from going from doing it for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So learning to how to use your body and rebalance your body,
Mm-hmm.
into helping other people do the same, and meeting them where they are, which is a bit, I think, sometimes the biggest challenge for somebody
Yeah.
who's worked at a high level or trained at a high level in a sport or something like dance, to then communicate that to somebody who doesn't have that movement background.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, I found myself just teaching the basics, teaching, okay, we're just going to hold plank for another 5 more breaths because you just need to perfect your shoulder alignment right now.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of the Pilates method is it's all about quality versus quantity. So
Huge.
it's like you slow down, you're focusing on breath, alignment, really precise muscle engagement. So you really understand what muscles should be working, which muscles shouldn't be working in a given exercise.
Yeah.
So it really teaches you how to be super mindful and slow down. So as a dancer, I had to learn that curve. I was young, 22, teaching people in their 30s and 40s, 50s.
Doesn't that feel so strange?
It's so weird. I'm like, why are they going to listen to me? I'm just like,
But they
10.
do.
They
It's
do,
just they just
though.
like they're like, please. I think at that
Yes.
point they're like, if this is what you've been doing, like,
Yeah.
tell me something.
Exactly.
Because at that point, you're kind of in your 40s and 50s. Like, if you have this imbalance that's been around for 20, 25 years, maybe
Yeah.
forever, it's like it starts to become very evident.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're in chronic pain. That's like most people they're trying to find some sort of remedy. Back pain's like the number one complaint of all
Yeah.
modern day people from sitting so much. So it's like I had UCSF back care classes. I used to teach at the college to their staff and to like their fitness community because they had a big massive gym there. And so I started a back care class just to specify in back care, because again, of my story, right?
Yeah.
I had recovered, I had totally healed my back. And so then I started teaching that to other people who had stenosis and all sorts of slip discs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny. My back injury is what got me into coaching. coaching strength and conditioning, right?
Really?
So it
Oh,
was,
cool.
yeah, it was fun. I ruptured a disc, my
Mm.
S1, right? So it
Yeah.
was smashed, and
Wow.
I did it working oil and gas construction growing up.
Oh, wow.
So I
Yeah.
was like, we were hauling pipe and stuff like that, and I thought I just tore my hamstring or something. Like, it was just painful, but it wasn't. It was different. And what had happened is that my nerve was just getting demolished by like remnants of my disc, and
Yeah. Wow.
I had this like don't be a pussy mentality, right,
Of
from
course.
from like growing up in this like small Texas town.
Sure, sure.
And what happened, what really shifted everything, that moment was when someone told me that, and I had been training and I'd played football up until this year.
Yeah.
Actually happened the weekend I got home from my first year at college, and I'd played football that first year, was going to transfer to TCU,
Oh,
and
wow.
then 3 months later I like can't walk.
Wow.
And someone had told me, you're going to probably have to have surgery at one point, and you're probably never going to deadlift again or like lift weights again.
Right.
And I just got to this point, I was like, I don't accept that. Like, I just don't. You know what? Like, no.
The doomsday scenario, right?
Yeah,
You're never
I was
gonna.
like, I'm 19 years old, guys. Let's be real. I can
Yeah.
do something with this.
Mm.
So I started reading, and I read, old like strength and conditioning books, like Mark Ripato's Starting Strength, and just saw like, okay, how does my back even work?
Yeah.
Like, what all is going on here? Like, how do my hamstrings and my quads attach to my hips, which goes into my lumbar? Like, what's happening there, and how can
Yeah.
I affect that? And it came back to take some time, move your body well, open up like, here's where your hips are super shut off.
Exactly.
Okay, now here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna deadlift a 45-pound bar properly for the first time in your life
Yeah.
100 times. Like
Yeah.
5 sets of 20, and then you're gonna do 55 pounds, and then
Mm.
65, and whatever. Then 7, 8 years later,
Yeah.
you're deadlifting 600 pounds,
Wow.
and it's like, wow, okay, that's cool. Like, they were wrong,
Absolutely.
and I feel good.
Yeah.
And there's definitely some issues there, but it's that pivotal moment of like, you know what, you're telling me that, and I probably should trust you, but I think there's another answer out there. I want to at least be curious enough to exhaust all the options.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, what I learned was that movement heals, and the proper type of movement and done in an aligned, like you said, slow, mindful, conscious way where
Hmm.
you're building over time and just really aware of and listening to your body. When you build that awareness, then it's like the sky's the limit really, and what you can do.
Yeah.
And it's also the mindset. And there's so many aspects of it,
There
nutrition,
is, yeah.
mindset, but I feel like so many doctors, and that's why I was so frustrated, so many doctors are just like, well, just like my PT at the time was like, well, just do squats and do some core work and your back will get better. I'm like, it's not getting better, and you
Yeah.
got to have a better solution for me, something that's
Just
more
get-
specific.
There's
Something that's
the
more
answers are
specific.
there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
So you transition from that, and now, I mean, you're in Costa Rica. You're
Yeah.
doing retreats mainly,
Yeah.
and teaching wherever you are.
Yeah, so my life has really shifted so much. I mean, my path is totally different than I think I anticipated. So from teaching, I was teaching private client base in San Francisco for 8 years alongside
Yeah.
a dance career. So I had like private clients, 4 to 6 a day classes, weekend retreats and stuff in San Francisco. And then I started producing retreats because I really wanted to travel. Like
Yeah.
I had gotten bit by the travel bug when I was like 16 years old, and I really wanted to start producing retreats and have that more global lifestyle. So I produced retreats in Mexico and Bali, and then I went out to Australia for a year, and I was teaching around Australia. So I just put myself out there as a young teacher. I was like 23, and I was like, I just want to travel and teach. So I auditioned at a couple studios in Sydney and Melbourne and up on the Gold Coast, and started teaching workshops and classes and stuff, and getting more experience basically under my belt. And that's when, and then several years later, after really hitting, I'd say, my peak in my dance career and really realizing I need a lifestyle shift. I've been living in San Francisco in the grind, literally downtown, like in the
Yeah.
grind for 8 years.
And San Francisco's so like, it's a beautiful city, but it's like,
Yes.
it's so jammed
It's
together.
so tight. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
it's-
all concrete. There's
It's wild, yeah.
like a patch of grass, Dolores Park, and you go there once a month to put your feet on the ground. You don't have connection to
The
nature.
grass.
Yeah. And so my life really shifted when I was invited to teach at the Envision Festival. And this was
Okay.
like 5.5 years ago. My friend Harlow, who I met in San Francisco, he invited me. He has a retreat center in Costa Rica, and he invited me to teach. He's like, they're looking for, US-based teachers to come and teach at the festival. Can you come down? And I was like, okay, like, let me see if I can make it work. So I went down for 2 weeks and saw all of these amazing people living their dream. They're living in paradise. They're running beautiful retreat centers and yoga studios, and they're wild and connected to the earth, and just like these almost like tribal, right?
Yeah.
Tribal, like raw, wild, but just living a really beautiful life, and so holistic.
Yeah.
Let's say the life was very holistic, and it was very opposite of what I've been experiencing in San Francisco, which was all grind, work, hustle, like, you never took a day off. That was just
Yeah.
my life. I worked 7 days a week. And so after experiencing Costa Rica, I came home and I said, I'd love to produce a retreat there or something. That'd be pretty cool. And then 5 months later, I had sold everything, closed all of my business in San Francisco, and moved to Costa
Just
Rica.
went for it.
Yeah, it was the universe was aligning. I mean, there's no other way to say it except like I had an investor step forward that wanted to invest in my dream and my vision, and it was like, okay, I guess we're gonna do this. And so I literally left my entire client base in San Francisco and opened up a studio in Manuel Antonio, where I've been living for 5 years.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and so then once I had a studio space that was mine, I was super excited about that. I started producing retreats every month, and so I'd have one retreat a month, and I had teacher training programs. I did like everything from raw chef teacher training programs, stand up paddleboard yoga certifications, like detox health coach certifications, like you name it. Like I was all over the board.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And then after a year of doing that, I closed the doors on it because I realized, this is a really seasonal place. In low season, there's no one in town. It's like I would sit there for days and no one would walk into the studio. And I'm
Wow.
like, wow, I didn't anticipate this. I knew it was seasonal. I didn't know how bad it was though. And I
Yeah,
said, this
you
is
hadn't been
just,
there for a full a calendar year
I
and
hadn't
seen
been
that.
there. And,
Yeah.
and I just, this isn't smart. I don't want to be tethered to a space anyway. I want to be a digital nomad. I want to be able to travel and flow and work online. And so I really then decided, okay, I'm going to close the doors on the studio and just start producing retreats and trainings and doing online coaching, which I was already doing, but
Yeah.
just to a lesser degree because the studio was taking up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And so then I started another big part of my path, another big like tool I've discovered along the way was plant medicine. So I started working with ayahuasca 5 years ago. I sat my first ceremony within the first 6 months of living in Costa Rica,
Okay.
and that radically changed my trajectory as well.
What was that first experience like for you with ayahuasca?
It was the most life-changing experience I've ever experienced. I mean,
Yeah.
it radically shook me to my core. I released what felt like 10 years of emotional baggage. I realized so much about myself, like all the patterns, like just the self-destructive thoughts and habits I was
Yeah.
still expressing. I mean, I was a total hardcore perfectionist, total workaholic. Like I just didn't know
Yeah.
how to stop. I didn't know how to
Well, you had
slow
been
down.
trained to do that your whole
Exactly.
life. I mean,
Exactly.
dance is up there with like I would say dance and little league baseball. It's like one of those things where it's year round
Yeah.
and it can get. I mean, you can get sucked into that early. If you pattern
Yeah.
yourself in that way of thinking early, it can lead to some really
Oh yeah.
good work ethic.
For sure.
And
There's a
also,
positive. There's the light and there's the dark, right?
yeah,
And
right. The shadow of that is losing yourself in that.
yeah, the shadow was, and that's one of the reasons I also needed to leave San Francisco was to really break away from the cultural indoctrination, the programming I grew up with. Like, dance was my life. Like, I was a dancer. That was my identity. So then
Yeah.
leaving that was a huge shift for me, moving into a new culture where I was no longer identifying as a dancer. I was teaching things I was passionate about, but really my heart has always been dance. So
Mhm.
so not having that in my life or that identity was really a radical shock and like
Yeah.
shift, but I needed it. Like I really needed the balance in my life because what I was doing in the San Francisco was not balanced or healthy at all in
Yeah.
terms of my workload and stuff. And so um, moving to Costa Rica and having this more natural lifestyle where I was super connected to the rainforest and the ocean, 85-degree ocean, beautiful
Yeah.
paradise, also meeting amazing friends, like really present, heart opened friends that
Do
are
you
just
feel
like,
like that environment kind of brings those people together?
totally.
That's something that I'm
Yeah.
thinking about a lot now, and I'm actually going to Costa Rica early in October
Oh, cool. Yeah.
to go to Rhythmia. They invited me down there, and
Nice.
I'm incredibly excited about it. And I might end up going back end of September. It's like it's things as life happens, like
Yes.
more opportunities to go. to
Yes.
go.
Oh, you'll love it.
I'm
Mhm.
sure I will. I'm excited about it. And I loved Peru too. I've thought about going to live in Cusco for a few months because I could live
Yeah.
there for like $2 a day.
I know,
and
it's crazy. It's amazing.
It's so funny. Yeah,
Cusco's
I'm
cool.
like I could just make $1,000 a month and live like a king over here. This is great.
You could.
Because as long as I have internet, it's fine. But I think there's something to be said for this, and people around me and my world have said this. It's like, hey, I almost moved to New Zealand to
Oh,
coach
yeah.
CrossFit, and it was like
Cool.
it was a amazing experience. I was going to go to Wellington, which is
Yeah.
it was just a complete shift of I wanted to just shift my reality, and I had a CrossFit resume at the time where I could coach wherever. I'd coach seminars with some great people, and I could just go wherever they speak English. Like I could find a job.
Cool.
Right, and they were like wanted to hire me. My visa ended up getting denied, and then I ended up working for On It, which was like it all kind of happened. It was like I took that as a sign like, okay, you're supposed to stay here for a little longer, like stay in it.
Sure.
But I think there's something to be said for when you feel drawn to just break outside of what's
Mm-hmm.
around you, because you end up responding to it. If you think about the way that you go hang out with your high school friends, right? So you go back
Yeah.
to a reunion or just you're around your high school friends, like you kind of revert back to like the 17-year-old version of yourself.
Right?
Like the way you
Yes.
talk and what you
Yes.
do, you'll probably drink more than you normally do. You know, they'll do these
Yeah.
things, and it's fun for a while. But if you
Yeah.
think about the way that manifests in your day-to-day life now,
Mm-hmm.
like who you're around, like you've essentially created your identity around how people expect for you to show up.
Yeah.
And
Well
sometimes
said.
I spent a ton of time in LA over the past 6 months, and it was like no one knows me there. Like no one
Right.
knows who I am. Like a
Right.
couple people, but when I got the chance to just step outside of that and be kind of who I am now without any kind of
Yeah.
expectation around who that should be,
Yeah.
it's so liberating. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
to
very
me
much
that
so.
the travel is huge. And when you feel drawn to do that, people will be like, what are you running away from? And it's like, am I
Mm.
running away from something? Like that's
Or where am I being called?
exactly.
So
Maybe
for
I'm running to
me,
something.
yeah, I was really intuitively called. I mean, there was no. I'll never forget standing in this hostel I stayed in Melantonio, where I live now, and it was such a strong intuitive hit. Like, Amber, this could be that dream that you've been writing about, blogging
Yeah.
about for years. Like that vision you had on your vision board or whatever that you were thinking about. This could be that if you're willing to jump, and that. My heart and intuition, it was so strong, I'll never forget it, like the chills and just the intensity. And I've never felt so alive and so welcomed and so loved. The country of Costa Rica, the people, the
Hmm.
culture, they're just so present, very open-hearted, open-minded people, very
Yeah.
accepting, loving. And when you're in a culture like that, also they have just a slower way of life. They embody pura vida. Everything's beautiful. Like they live in a beautiful, beautiful environment. Everything's muy tranquilo. They're just like chill out, enjoy life.
What's
Like
there to
that's their
stress about? Like, what are you doing?
exactly. And so when I moved down there, I was just a train wreck probably
Yeah.
for them. They were like, "Who is this
This
woman?" Because I'm
lady's a
just
mess.
pushing, like trying to make shit happen, and the internet's going like our internet was like 4 megs up or something. It was so bad. So anyway, I hit a lot of walls. I learned a lot of lessons moving down
Hmm.
there about how to slow down and be more present and be just like enjoy connection. Costa
Yeah.
Ricans love hanging out with friends and family. They're all about human connection
Yeah.
and connection to nature. And that's such a breath of fresh air coming from US culture, which is really values different things, very
Yeah.
individualistic, very materialistic. And so I just really enjoyed that different cultural shift and the environmental shift as well. Like the vibration of the jungle is very different from a city. So there's
So
just,
different. Peru is very much like that too. Like it's
Mhm.
almost like life turns over faster, and there's a lot more. It's just that there's a lot more life. Like life is very dense. If
Yeah.
you think about it, like a square foot of jungle, like what all is
Yes.
going on in there.
Exactly.
It's like there's a lot of life and a lot of turnover, and
Yeah.
it's wild. It's funny when you think about ayahuasca too.
Hmm.
Like where the ayahuasca is grown, it says a lot about how that experience is going to be.
Yes.
But
Very
the
much
first
so.
ayahuasca I did was from Hawaii, and it was like, oh, this is nice. Like I had some darkness, but it was like all in
Sure.
all very gentle. And then you go to Peru, and it's like, whoa, this is a different plant with a whole different life.
The Amazon's a different animal. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've sat in
totally
Peru
is.
as well. It's different. It's different. The rainforest is the mama of all rainforests.
Yeah, it's
So,
like this deep old kind of like, and when you're
mhm.
drinking old vine too, there's something there.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
embodies that experience.
Yeah, they say the older the vine, the wiser the vine, and it very much matters where it's grown, I
Yeah,
think.
and ayahuasca tourism has changed a lot of that too. I think people drink a
Yeah.
lot of young vine.
Yes,
We
they
sound like
do.
super hippies right now talking about, but hey, here we
It's
are.
all good.
No, that's incredible though, and I
Yeah.
think there's something to be said for that feeling when you feel a place resonate with you,
Yeah.
and then you know something's right about it, and then you immediately get nervous, and
Mm.
not like scared nervous, like that nervousness of like, oh, this could be that thing that I've been open to, and here it is.
Yeah, well, I felt more home there in
Oh
the
man,
jungle than I did in Santa Cruz, California, or San Francisco, where I grew up. It was a very radical homecoming. It was a knowing, like in my soul and my heart, that it's not logical, and I
mm.
knew that when I was there. I was like, wow, I feel so at home here. And I even went back like a couple months later before I moved down there to see like, okay, well maybe it's Nosara, maybe it's Santa Teresa. Where in Costa Rica? It's obviously this country, but like
Yeah,
where? And so I went back to Manuel Antonio, which is where I initially felt that feeling and felt it again. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I was so excited, just so much energy buzzing. And I said, you know what, this is it. I gotta make a life here and figure out why I'm being called here. Clearly, I understand now. It's
yeah,
because I needed to sit with ayahuasca. I needed to understand. I needed to
mm.
grow spiritually, go through a big spiritual awakening, and start to really step onto my bigger path, which now is, producing deeply healing retreats that are shamanic yoga retreats that incorporate ayahuasca ceremonies. So
I love
my
that.
retreats are include 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, adventures, yoga, vegan food, like really healthy. Um, and then I have 30-day yoga teacher trainings as well, and eco chef training programs. And so those also incorporate ceremonies as well. So
Wow.
it's become a massive part of my path, something I never, if you had told me 5 years ago, like you're going to be drinking ayahuasca in the jungle and you're going to be producing retreats and trainings, I'd be like, you are out of your mind. That's not going to be me.
I love that. It's so
Yeah.
funny. You get exposed to so many things in that space. I mean, it just
Yeah.
and the ayahuasca experience itself just reshapes what reality can be for you. Like you never
Yeah.
look at the world. I mean, maybe you can if you really try or just try to put it away, but
Yeah.
it's hard to see the world the same after
Yeah.
that because
Absolutely.
your perspective is being completely rocked.
Right. And what you are aware of within yourself and within the universe and your relations with everybody else. I mean, everything shifts. And so that's why I just was so drawn to it. I'm like, this is such a powerful medicine that will radically heal the world. And
Yeah.
so it's a huge part of my service, let's say.
It's so amazing that
Hmm.
you were called the ayahuasca like that.
Yeah, very
That's
much so. And when I returned, like I was just in Costa Rica for 3 weeks, and I hadn't sat in a ceremony for 3 months, which is the longest time I've ever,
wow.
longest in 5 years without sitting. And I went home, basically had a deep, deep homecoming with it. And there's something about that spirit, the spirit of that plant, that calls me in a way I can't logically like explain or
Yeah.
understand. It's just a knowing that this is my path, and I'm just walking it.
You know what's funny, and not to spin this off into psychedelics, but we might, is
Sure.
I don't feel that way with ayahuasca, even though I've only had 4 experiences, and I've only sat
Sure.
4 times, and 3 were in a row, and it was incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
And then in Peru was a mild experience, but it was perfect for what we
Hmm.
were doing. And I'm curious to go back now and do
Hmm.
4 nights in a row,
Mm.
which I know is a lot. And
Yeah.
for those of you guys that haven't done ayahuasca that are listening, it's interesting to see how it all plays out because it's not like 4 separate. Every one of them's different, but they're almost like puzzle pieces that fit together.
Oh yeah,
It's like
especially if you're sitting back to back like that. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's like she knows how long she has with you. Like the mother knows, and
Mm.
she's like, "I'm gonna give you what you need when you need it," and and they kind of build on each other.
Yeah.
But I haven't felt called to that medicine in that way.
Yeah.
But mushrooms, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm at home in a
Mhm.
place.
Yeah.
And I've actually gotten messages like, "This is a part of your life.
Oh
This is a
yeah.
part of your," and it's so strange how these plants
They speak to you.
they speak in
Mhm.
like literally like I heard words. I had to be like, "Hey, calm. I get it. I heard you."
Really? You heard a voice.
Well, it was the first time I actually guided an experience for somebody,
Oh cool.
and she had beet cancer.
Oh
But she
great.
was still, her hair was like an inch and a half long, and she had really faced death. Like she had
Wow.
beat it, and it was breast cancer. She didn't have to have a mastectomy, but she was in a really great place for it. And we had actually connected, like matched on Bumble, and then became like really good friends. It was weird. It was one of those things like we just, and I was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about this?" She's like, "Actually, yeah." And I was like, "Well, we can do that and go
Sure.
outside." And my whole mentality with that was, I'll guide the experience, but my whole intention is to help them have a really positive experience with this.
Great.
And
Yeah.
that may be seeing some things that are challenging, but keeping you engaged and talking you through things and giving you the space to speak and just staying kind of grounded in that and not interjecting and just letting it happen. And I've
Sure.
done that several times since then, and it feels so right. It's
Mm.
such a strange feeling, but that was the first one. And I remember I was laying in the hammock, and she was kind of like laying on a beach towel, and like in the sun. It was a beautiful day out on by a creek, kind of by
Mm.
ourselves. And his voice was just like, "This is a part of who you are.
Mm.
This is a part of your life." And it kept saying it, and I was like, "Oh, really? Like, all right." It was wild, but I think
Yeah.
with ayahuasca, it's like that seems like it's a medicine for me. It's almost like running. Like I do like running, and it's
Yeah.
okay, but it's like
Yeah.
I'm not a runner.
Yeah. Sure. 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 Yeah. It's not your path. Let's say for
Yeah,
sure.
but I do love the lessons that I take from that.
Mhm.
I think it is really funny how those manifest in our lives is like these.
Oh, and it's very bizarre because I bet if you had someone asking you, did you ever think that you would be, let's say, holding space for someone like with mushrooms, you'd be like, no, if you told me,
No,
five, 6 years
yeah,
ago,
yeah. I'd be
you'd
like,
been
"What?"
like, and that felt good to you, like that's,
Yeah.
but I think that's the beauty I think is that we go through this conscious evolution and our spiritual awakening, and then we have these things just appear that are our teachers that are a huge part of our path that
Mhm.
you never would have thought would have been a part of your path, but they are. And it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, okay, well, this feels so right and so at home, then and it's going to keep calling you. That's the thing. It's going to
Yeah.
keep calling you.
Yeah.
So you might as well just listen and start
That's a
walking the
good
path, you know?
stuff.
Like
Yeah.
honestly, that's my advice. Like if you're feeling the call, like just listen to it, because it'll keep calling you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
What do you feel like how it changes the experience when you have the plant medicine with these retreats, with
Yeah,
these teacher trainings? Like people are,
sure.
I'm assuming that the teacher training by itself
Yeah.
is very transformative, and there's a lot of kind of peeling back the layers, if you
Oh
will,
yeah,
to yourself.
big time.
I would imagine people are just kind of like cracked open and gooey here as they go
Oh.
into ceremony. Like that's
Well, and that's,
incredible.
yeah, I mean, the 5 day experience is called the Epic Awakening, and it's extremely powerful. But yeah, 30 days, 30 days of yoga and meditation all day, eating a 100% organic vegan diet that's designed to heal your body. So it's fermented, soaked, sprouted, like
Wow.
really designed to heal your body from the inside out. So we are preparing the body the entire month for this experience. And so they're in the right headspace, right?
Yeah.
They're really great meditators. They're able to really clear the mind and get into that open space, the surrender space, right?
Hmm.
And then their bodies are super strong and aligned, which really helps with ayahuasca, because the more open your energy channels are, the deeper the medicine can work. So you know you're
Yeah.
really, and that's what I've done with the Epic Awakening, is really designed the retreat with very specific intention about movement, adventure, grounding in nature, meditation, teaching them how to meditate, teaching them mantras, certain things that we use in ceremony that really help facilitate the best experience ever. So they're learning all of that through this 30 days. And so not only have they probably lost 10 pounds, totally transformed their mind and all this within their body. And then like really the big celebration at the end is working with ayahuasca, because they're able to really tap in the testimonials are amazing, because they're really able to tap into their soul's purpose in a way that mm, you know, they weren't able to access, let's say, in those 30 days, but the clarity of their purpose and the clarity of
Hmm.
why they're here on earth, their mission in this life, that clarity comes to them. And so many of them had like direct downloads of like, this is your action plan for what you're going to be doing for the next 5 years or whatever, like direct actions.
I
And
can't think of a better way to prepare for that, because I
yeah,
feel like sometimes in ayahuasca that I've experienced, like a lot of the beginning is just clearing the noise.
that's it.
And if you don't do the work, if you do that work beforehand, outside
Yes.
of the medicine, like that's,
Yeah.
man, that's that gives me a totally different context on how
It,
to view this.
it is, yeah. So when you really focus on the dietary protocol, like really
Hmm.
eating a clean diet, vegan, organic, like no salt, no oils, like
Yeah.
certain really strict protocol,
Yeah.
and then you're working in the body every day, grounding, aligning, centering, and then you're working on your mind and meditation and
Hmm.
all that. When you've got all of that lined up and then you go sit, it's a totally different experience. It's
Wow.
just, it's a taste of enlightenment in a way that most people will never experience, because they've not done that pre-work leading into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's,
so how did it go from, so you had this extremely transformative experience the first time you sat,
yeah.
into, and I'm assuming numerous other experiences, and then
Yeah.
into incorporating that into the retreats that you're producing. So
Yeah, it was, and it has another like prime example of the universe, and me really understanding this is a huge part of my path. So prime example is I was producing retreats every month, like I told you, like yoga retreats, superfood, raw vegan retreats, all this stuff. And um I was sitting once a month for my own healing, because I
hmm.
was doing a lot of deep dive work into clearing a lot of like the roots of my old eating disorders and ancestral stuff, like really just digging,
Yeah. Oh, the
clearing and
ancestral
healing.
stuff is wild. Yeah.
Yeah, so just really working on myself. And then after like, about my fifth ceremony, I started talking about it online. And that's when I did like my first post on Facebook about my experiences with ayahuasca. And then I wrote an article for the local magazine about in Manuel Antonio about my experiences at the shamanic healing center I was going to. And because I was writing for them on a monthly basis. And so I was sharing about my transformation and really nervous about that, but also knowing I needed to share, like I need to be at a speaker box for this, and like for this sort of work, because yeah, no one else is stepping up and talking about it. So
Yeah.
it just became like I knew it was part of my path was to talk about it. So I started sharing it. So sure enough, I found that like I had this retreat right before Envision Festival that lined up with some monthly ceremonies that they always ran. So they'd have a monthly ceremony, and this retreat happened to end the day before the ceremony. And so I said, "Hey
Oh,
guys,
wow.
like I don't know if you're open to this or curious about this, but I read in my article that I had, put in the magazine, and I was explaining to them about my journey, and I was like crying because I'd, had such a deep like transformation. And so, sure enough, I said, hey guys, if you're curious, I'm going tomorrow to this ceremony. If you're going to be in town, you're welcome to join me. Like a simple invite.
Yeah.
All their arms go up.
Oh wow.
And
How'd
I'm
that
like,
feel?
what? All 12 of them were like, we're going. And I was, wow. It was really shocking to me. I really didn't expect that because it's very kind of out of the norm, right? These
Yeah.
ancient shamanic traditions for someone to just be like, yes, I'm coming,
Sign me up.
sign me up. So we went and they had such unbelievably deep transformations that I said, you know what? Like maybe this is something I need to be doing. Maybe I need to be incorporating these ceremonies into my retreats. And that's when we came up with Epic Awakening. And the Epic Awakening became I was consistently doing different types of retreats. And then the Epic Awakening was so successful. The testimonials were so powerful that I just started just producing that. And I produced it every month for 3 years straight.
Wow.
It was really, so I ended up sitting like 2 to 4 times a month. It was
And
really intense.
and you were sitting with the people that were on the retreat. You weren't the
Yes.
shaman.
No,
Let's
no,
get clear
yeah.
about that because I think that people may have lost
No,
that
let's get
in
very clear
translation.
about that.
You were
Yeah, so
not. You
I
had.
was bringing groups.
Yeah.
I'm very much the bridge between
I
these
love the way you
worlds.
said that.
And so
Yeah.
the bridge between, let's say, modern everyday people and bringing them to these ancient traditions in the safest way possible. That's really a huge part of my path is I realize that's my part. My
Yeah.
part, who knows what'll happen down the line, but I knew from a very early stage with ayahuasca, I was never going to be, or at least not now, be a medicine woman. Like
Yeah.
starting to train with it and work with it, that wasn't going to be my path. My path and my genius is really being that promoter, bringing people to the
Yeah.
experience and also then being the coach afterward, the integration coach that can really help them through that process afterward. So, and really I guess my genius is designing the program to really facilitate the best experience ever. So like I said, the yoga,
Yeah.
adventures, like that's my specialty is designing the container and the
Yeah.
experience so that then they have the best experience ever.
Exactly, which is extremely important. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that that's as important as the ceremony itself, and that's
Absolutely.
a whole different skill set on its own.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly important to understand the kind of bridge that you are.
Yeah.
Like we're all a bridge to something, right? We're bridging
Yeah.
two pieces. Like I love that I get to be the bridge to kind of like this bro culture,
Yeah.
and also be bringing stuff like that. Like this is incredible, and
Yeah.
people are so intrigued by this, and still I think it's going away, and I don't want to overspeak about it, but it is kind of taboo at this point, even though I think it's that and reached the point of curious taboo versus kind of dogmatic against the plant medicine culture. Like it's getting
Sure.
to be more and more normalized,
It is. Oh, I've seen a
and
huge
people are
shift in the last
incredible.
5 years.
I can say like yeah, and then people ask about this love tattoo I have on my arm, and like
Yeah.
where'd that come from? I was like, well, my first ayahuasca experience, and most people don't ask me what ayahuasca is. Like
Anymore.
they know,
Oh,
and
that's
they'll
great.
ask like, "What was that like?" And I was like, "Well, I felt like I, fell in a swimming pool full of love. It was
Yeah.
awesome." You know?
I love that. That was a great explanation.
Yeah, it was like I remember saying like you have to think of like you have to find a narrative for the story
Yeah.
because otherwise there's just so much that happens. And I
Yeah.
remember having that feeling like if loving someone the most you ever loved them is like shooting them with a super soaker, it felt like I just fell into a pool.
Yeah.
Like it was like
Yes,
that's all I
true.
had, and there was something about that I'd never experienced, like a mother like that.
Yeah.
Like calling me sweetheart and telling me everything was gonna be okay. Like that was
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Like I needed that. I was so scared.
Mm.
I went from incredibly scared to the most at peace.
Right.
And you don't lose that. Like I can still think about it right now and still feel it.
Absolutely.
It's wild. That's one thing that's so wild about these experiences too. Is like it's like watching a movie almost, but being in it, and it's like Doctor Strange. It's like, which by the way is. If you haven't seen Doctor Strange, like
I
that's
have not
based.
seen Doctor
Oh
Strange.
my gosh, the CGI they do in that it is an ayahuasca experience. Like that's
Really?
what they're mimicking. It's hilarious because I
Is
watched
this
it.
a TV show?
It's a movie.
Oh, okay.
I watched it and it was like, oh, this is
Based on-
ayahuasca.
Really? Oh, that's
It's
so
hilarious.
funny. I gotta watch it. That's
Oh,
great.
it's so good. They did a great job with that. But you take these things away from you, and they just become like this tool bag that you have to
Yeah.
bring yourself to your life. Because
Very much
you can
so.
completely lose yourself. And
Yes.
it's nice to be reminded who you are every now and then.
It is, for me, it's the deepest connection to my soul and my heart that I've ever experienced. So that's what people ask me all the time, like, why do you consistently sit with it? And I'm like, well, because I like to tap into my soul in that way. I like to tap into
I'm
like
down with my soul
I'm
here.
down with like knowing what my purpose is and really remembering my infinite capacity and my infinite nature. The soul is limitless in its
Yeah.
expansion, and then really people always ask too, like why do you sit so much? Well, because there's always more healing to do. You're
Yeah.
doing ancestral healing. You're doing collective healing, and then there's also just the fact that you're learning a lot of information. Like
Yeah.
it's direct information from the universe.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's
you're
so
learning all sorts of cool stuff.
I love that, and I love breaking the plane and realizing there's way more to this life thing
Yeah.
than we know,
Mm.
and that's
Way
okay.
more than our brains can
Yeah,
understand.
it's like we're
Yeah.
not even supposed to understand, but
No.
just know that there's a lot out there. There's a lot
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
I really do. I want to explore this, and you brought it up a couple of times. Ancestral
Sure.
healing piece.
Yeah.
I had an experience very similar to that with ayahuasca,
Mhm.
and what has that experience been like for you?
You know, for me, it's really connecting to my ancestors. So I've not done, I'd say, I've had visions of Native American, what I've come to learn and know is like my Cherokee ancestry. So back in my like great aunt, she was like full blood Cherokee.
Uh huh.
And so I often have a Native American chief show up in my visions. And he doesn't speak to me. I do see him occasionally, but I feel him and he sends me energy. And there's a certain amount of connection. And like I've broken out into tears over the love that I feel from him and from my aunt. So I know that my ancestors are with me in ceremonies. I can't see them or speak to them, but I feel them. It's hard to explain.
You've never seen them?
I've never seen them. No.
Okay.
And some people like for me the way I receive information with this medicine is very kinesthetic. It's through my body. So it's through what I would call light language, lots of light patterns, frequency, vibration in my body. It's feelings versus some people see like full on spirits. They'll see an entity, whether it's a past loved one or they'll see, a spirit, or they'll hear their audio receptive in that way where they'll hear someone's voice. So I hear what I believe to be the spirit of ayahuasca and then I feel a lot. So it's very body receptor, let's
Yeah.
say, receptive.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a really interesting Native American experience on Vilca in Peru.
Oh, cool.
Have I ever told you the story before?
No, I don't think so.
So I was called into ceremony with them. It was a really
Oh.
wild experience. So Vilca is the 5-MeO,
Yes.
NN-DMT, and bufotine in
Yes.
a bean pod, and you snort it. It's wild.
Oh, wow.
So it's really similar to ayahuasca,
Sure.
but it's very deep, and it's only an hour. It's like
Okay.
a solid hour, like hour and 15 minutes.
But
And in-
still, that's a long journey for just straight DMT.
yeah, it's like if you were to smoke DMT in a
Yeah.
similar way, it's
Mhm.
like that level of you can come in and out of it more so,
Okay.
but not quite. Like how ayahuasca kind of comes in waves,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
It's like that, but they're much steeper.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
And I would love to hear what you have to say about this. 'Cause
Sure.
This is I have Cherokee ancestry, so my granddad's father was full blood Cherokee,
Oh, wow.
right? So not too far down the line, and I thought that had something to do with this, but I ended up in this kind of ceremony hut with a fire. People were drumming, and I was drumming on my chest and singing a song. So I had like taken a song from this that I didn't know, and I was making these really kind of aggressive Native American like mouth sounds, like these like ha noises.
Wow.
It was but it was amazing. It was like a part of what was going on in my vision, but I was really doing it in my body. Like people could hear us next door,
Wow.
right? And it was incredible. So I'm in this experience, and then I see this woman. And we don't like have sex necessarily, but we like spin together. Like we like come together as like one.
In 3D, like in this room.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It was all like I
It was all
wasn't
visions.
here.
Okay,
I wasn't.
gotcha.
I was not in my
Mhm.
body at all
Gotcha.
for this piece. And we just kind of spun together. And then there was a child. And I kept coming back to these ceremonies, and this kid was growing up. So I would change the song I was singing, and the kid was growing up. So it was like a baby
Whoa.
into like a toddler into like a little like 5-6-year-old kid.
Wow.
And I was teaching this kid things that I had taken from my life for him to be a warrior of love is what it was.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm going back in like 5-year increments and like raising this child with his mother, who like that was like his real mother, but I was like his spirit father.
And was she native?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like it wasn't like now. It wasn't now. It was like
Sure.
definitely past.
Maybe a past life.
Maybe it
Wow.
was super wild. So but it felt like I was called into their ceremony. Like it was like as soon as I came through the first like initial visions, it was like, boom, I'm playing that song, and I was just there.
Wow.
And I was in this ceremony with them, and they were dancing and playing drums, and it was amazing.
Wow.
And I raised this kid up, and it was like talking about, it was like he would go through little like normal things kids would go through, and like kind of bully somebody, and it's like, well, here's, I would give him these lessons of being compassionate for other people
Wow.
and being able to connect. It was so wild, but none of it was with actual words. Like,
Okay.
It was just,
All right.
it was something else, and I couldn't
That's so cool.
figure that out, but I really hope that I get an opportunity to like visit that space again.
What a blessing. That is
It
such
was
a.
it was
I mean,
incredible.
Yeah, that's like one of those golden experiences that everyone wishes they have.
Oh yeah,
I've never experienced anything like that.
it
And
was
that's
it was
and I've sat
confusing
in
too.
over 65 ceremonies, but again, like everyone receives differently, right? Everyone has a different experiences based on how they perceive and understand information. So
Yeah.
clearly there's something there. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
When I talked to Don Howard, who's the shaman
Yes.
at Spirit Quest, he's an
Yeah, yeah.
amazing guy. He was like, yeah, when you were changing the song, you were going to a different frequency, which took you to a different time.
Time.
But it
Oh,
wasn't.
wow.
It wasn't me. It wasn't. I was not consciously. I did not realize I was beating on my chest like Tarzan.
Oh my
I had
God.
no idea. I was just. They were like,
You're just channeling. You're just
well,
like
yeah.
saying.
Olivia was in the room with me, and she was like, "Did you
Wow.
know you were doing that?" I was like, "I would come to and be doing it."
Wow.
And it would just, that was it. It was the most incredible experience I've ever had on any kind of
Wow.
psychedelic at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to
Sounds
do
like
that
you
again.
went home to a family,
I
whether
did.
it was a past life family or ancestral or yeah.
It was
Mm.
something. Yeah, it was wild.
So
But there's
cool.
something about the ancestral healing, and I also had an experience where I saw like a dark entity that had, it's like I have your brother and I have your dad and I have all
Mm.
the men of your family, and I tried to fight it for.
Wow.
It was my second ayahuasca experience. Went straight there. Boom. I like saw some stuff and it was
Wow.
like right there. It was just dark for like 3 hours, and I was
Jeez.
shaking and kind of going into convulsions, and it was a weirdly weird experience. It was terrifying. It was
I
really, and I was
bet.
just trying to fight this darkness, like as if you can do that.
Sure.
And then my brother popped into the vision, and my
Wow.
dad was my age. It was wild. Then we gave each other a hug, and then it just all this. The vision was over. It was over. It was like that was it. I was like back to
Wow.
normal. It was so. It was like, oh, you can't like fight this. Like to try to fight this is like just doesn't make any sense.
Mm.
Like it was. I don't know what the actual. I don't like to shape too much of a narrative out of it. But
Yeah.
that was that.
Yeah.
It was easy to remember because it was the entire experience was that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Not
Yeah.
to share trip stories, but the
Yeah.
ancestral piece really
Well,
intrigues me.
there's so much, a lot of my clients experience. They'll go to past lives. They'll actually have each one of their family members come up in front of their face, and they'll let's say forgive them, talk to them about their trauma. Like it's like they're literally healing them, like one person at a time. I've never experienced that, but I wish to. I mean, that would be so
Yeah.
cool. So I
You're
think
bringing up all these. I've had these experiences. It's
have
really
you?
funny.
Okay, so yeah, it's and every
Like,
yeah.
yeah, then they're common. It's not like you read Supernatural by Graham Hancock. It's like I read it after the fact, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
the thing this is the thing that
Yeah.
happens. Like people have astral children, and it create that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients who have talked to like loved ones who are in their life right now in the spirit world, and then a week later they have a phone call with them, and that person is completely different, and they've healed their relation in the
Oh
spirit world.
wow.
Lots of really really cool stories like that of just relation healing, whether it's
Hmm.
family members, ancestral, or it's just like your sister in your everyday life or your boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, lots of stuff happens in the spirit world that we can't really fathom in this life
No.
or
No.
in this reality, let's
And
say.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And isn't it nice when you can like the ancestral piece when you can break some patterns that have been.
Yeah.
If you look at Gabor Mate's work, if you're familiar with him at all,
Yes.
like
Yeah. It's
I mean,
incredible.
not only the biological piece, but like the way that kids are shaped in utero to be conditioned for their world outside of their mother.
Yes. Yes.
That's something I think about. Like I was definitely a part of like a high stress pregnancy, so that
Mm.
makes sense that I would have been diagnosed with like ADHD and
Sure.
set up in these ways. It's okay. That's where the compassion for yourself becomes incredibly important, which I
Yes.
think is another big piece of for whatever reason, the takeaways I've had from ayahuasca have centered back to almost like a rational compassion for myself.
Yes. And forgiveness and acceptance. Yeah. All of it. It all kind of narrows down to unconditional love. At the end of the day, it's all about unconditional love for yourself and for other people, right? It's like
Exactly.
if you look at all the lessons you learn, it all comes down to that. So
Yeah. So what do you feel like is next for you? I mean, you moved to Austin, you just recently
yeah.
married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Like, what do you feel called to do next?
So really, my next step is I'm really wanting to expand this training. So I've been doing it in Costa Rica for many many years, and I'm wanting to just, as much as I love Costa Rica and I love bringing people there for healing because it is such a healing space, I really want to expand and reach more people. So taking all of this work to the States, a place that I wouldn't necessarily choose to live, honestly. Like the culture is not my favorite of all the places I've been in the world. As
Austin's
much
cool,
as
but
Austin's
it
great.
still is U.S.
Austin's amazing. I love it here, but
Yeah.
it's still the U.S. culture. That's very much the collective consciousness here is a very certain frequency,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's really heavy. It's
Word.
really heavy,
Yeah.
and so anyway, so my what I'm doing is I'm expanding my trainings to Thailand and other like mecca for me in terms of my spiritual growth. Thailand was always a hot spot for me. My first backpacking trip was there. I've done many retreats there. So I have a training coming up in November in Copenhagen.
Ooh.
And then I have my next year training is going to be in Guatemala. So I went to Guatemala for the first time this year, fell in love with their culture, very much like Peru.
Yeah.
Right on what is it? Lake Atitlan
Okay.
is like this really sacred area. These volcanoes circle this lake. It's just really
Wow.
a spiritual center for
Yeah.
a lot of these types of, whether it's working with plant medicine or shamanic traditions or it's yoga and other types of like health and wellness. There's a big mecca there of expats that live there that work within the Guatemalan culture because the Guatemalan culture is very Mayan. So they still
Yeah.
live in a very Mayan way, like traditional clothing, like the way they live their life
Oh
is. So it's
man.
really cool. It's just like Peru, it's like
Yeah.
stepping back into ancient ways. It's beautiful. So,
I love those when you're in those
mm,
experiences, but I always feel like I stick out. So I'm like, I'm like, can I fit in a little bit? I'm like, obviously I'm American. I'm like 6 foot. I'm like twice of you. I'm two of you. Like they're so little.
they're very small people,
Like I
but
walk through doors. I'm like ducking. I'm like, hey,
exactly,
what's up, guys? I feel
exactly.
like Hodor or something.
Totally. I totally understand. I know. But yeah, so that's on the horizon in terms of the trainings. But I'm also launching an online business academy for people who are in the health and wellness world who want to basically do what I do. They want to
That's amazing.
live a digital nomad lifestyle. They want to produce healing retreats and trainings, and they want to work online. So they want to have online programs. They want to do online coaching. And
Hmm.
so there's a really, I see the gap in the health and wellness industry, whether it's personal trainers, yoga teachers, massage therapists, they don't really have enough solid business background or online
Hmm.
understanding to like market themselves, brand themselves, build a website, run online programs. That's a skill set that's really missing in all
Yeah.
the training programs, right? It's like, okay, you can go to a 200-hour yoga cert, but you'll only learn yoga. There's no other, like, you don't learn how to audition at studios. You don't know how to build a website. You
Yeah.
don't know how to run a business and put yourself out there and create workshops and retreats and all that. So I love teaching that because I think
Mm.
that's really what's missing is we want more people in the health and wellness industry, at least I do, who are doing it full time, who are really
Yeah.
making impact on people's lives full time, and they get to
Yeah.
do what they love full time, and they get paid well for it. Like that's the dream,
And
right?
that's so necessary, and
Yeah.
it's not about the money, but
No.
it's even so. I have this retreat coming up in August. We've been talking about it a little bit.
Yeah.
It was so amazing to sell it out and to be working with people that I'm working with, like
Yeah.
intern Abby who does all their graphic design. I get to fly her out here, and then
Nice.
Kirsten Asher who's doing the dance piece, and then I wanted to do some video work for this thing to document it,
Yeah.
and it was a good friend of mine who gave me a deal. His name Josh Wiseman, JT Wise Guy on Instagram. Go find him. He does amazing work, and of course he was giving me a deal, and it was like I was able. It felt so good. I mean, I don't think the money that I made from the retreat feels good, but it
Yeah.
was able to like to be able to just like fly the people here that need to be here, create a great experience, get an amazing house, and then
Yeah.
pay him as soon as he sends me the quote. Like
Yeah.
the flow of energy that goes along with that. I'm like, this feels good. Like
Yes.
everybody gets to be involved in this thing that we
Yeah.
created
Hmm.
together, all of us. And I don't mean like all of us as in like the facilitators, but everybody in the community that loves the podcast and what this is about. Like
Yeah.
there's something about that, and then people that are choosing to invest in themselves by coming to be a part
Yeah.
of what you're doing. And if something like that resonates with you, it's so incredible to be able to make a living doing it. Like
Yeah.
that's the goal, and to live well. And I think the people that love you want you to live well.
They do. And looking at JP's trajectory and what I've built with my business, it's like people look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, like you're living the dream. You're living on retreat. You're doing what you love full time." And it's like I've worked really hard to get here, but it's
Yeah.
totally doable. And it's just really taking one step forward every single day and knowing that what matters is how like the quality of your life, right? So the fulfillment aspect is huge. How much
Mhm.
impact you're making, how much you're serving other people, something bigger than yourself. Like that's where the
Yeah.
deep fulfillment comes. The money is necessary for you to grow. It's
Yeah.
necessary for you to actually sustain yourself and be able to reach more people. Like you can't make impact if you're, working if you're in survival mode and
Yeah,
you
like
can barely
scarcity.
get by.
Yeah.
You cannot. There's no way you're going to reach millions of people.
Exactly.
I mean, you could maybe through a podcast, but in terms of like really coaching people one on one and doing like
Mhm.
deep healing and deep transformational work.
One, to be able to show up and be present for people.
Yeah,
If you're doing one-on-one work with people or working with groups, like to be able to show up to that and not have to be in the back of your mind like thinking about the bills you have to pay and like what situation you're
absolutely.
in. Like there's also something to be said for the journey of doing that and
Yes.
getting to a place of abundance and
Yes.
operating and being super efficient and being efficient and impactful. Like those things become a big part of the learning curve as far as creating a
Yeah.
presence and sharing what you believe to be something that can be helpful for people.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other story on its own.
Yeah.
Someone be like, I think I have some things that could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many things that can be helpful, right? It's
Yeah.
just like, which where are you putting your money, where you're prioritizing.
Exactly.
But I think the biggest lesson in all of this is that a lot of health and wellness entrepreneurs, they don't value themselves enough to ask for what they're worth, and they don't value their impact and really what they're doing. And it's like, guys, you're changing the world.
Yep.
You're out there helping people radically change their lifestyle, their body, their families, their relations, and that's really what matters at the end of the day, is like how you feel and the quality of life you have, the connections you have, the
Yep.
love you share. Like,
Yeah.
so if you're helping someone in that way, like that's priceless, I think.
Yeah.
Different than buying a Gucci bag.
Damn, you had to put Gucci bags on blast.
Oh.
I agree, though.
Nothing against Gucci, but
I mean, it's whatever. I'm indifferent. Not my world.
Yeah, not mine either.
Well, Amber, where can everybody find you at?
EpicSelf.com is my website, and that's where all my retreats and trainings and online coaching is. And then Facebook, Amber Sears now is my name. On Facebook, I have a public figure page and a personal page, and then Epic Self on Instagram.
All right,
so yeah,
all the
I'd love
ways,
to
and you
connect with you
can
guys.
find all that stuff in the podcast description if you're checking this out. Amber, this has been really fun. Thank you so much. I'm so
Oh,
glad we
you're
finally got to
welcome.
do this again. Welcome to Austin, and
Thank you.
glad to have you around.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's our show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with Amber as much as I did. Such an amazing human being, and she's got a thing about her for sure. She's going to continue to do what she's doing, and I wish her the most success. Such a fantastic person. Oh man, what do we got here? Let's go over to gettherealness.com. Gettherealness.com, as I said in the intro, if you didn't skip it, if you're one of the intro skippers, but if you're here this long, I doubt you are. Gettherealness.com, you can find the intention journal and lifestyle design program. And I also want to give some love to our girl Whit Blue. Whit Blue has got the intro music, and I've been dropping some of her tracks at the end of the show as well. So we're going to play you out with a nice long full track from Whit Blue. She's kick-ass. She's doing the work. She's putting it in. I met her in LA, and she's putting the time in. She's making some really incredible music, and I'm stoked to have her as a fan of the show and as the music contributor to the intro. And I like dropping some songs at the end. I like throwing a little music at the end to play it out. You know, you listen to all this talk, and it's like, all right, let's get into let me have some transition time between this podcast and the next podcast or next audio book that I'm playing. So hope you love it, guys. And of course, if you love the show, head over to iTunes, give it a 5-star review, leave some kind words. Hope to meet you all soon, all of you, somewhere, some way. Maybe at a realness retreat, maybe in lifestyle design, maybe just at Whole Foods. Who knows? Maybe on a beach somewhere majestic. Hope you're having a kick-ass day. Much love. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.
Your truth isn't my truth, so what is true? How can we trust answers that we can't prove? You wanted me to love you, but I was too fucked up to trust you, and so I messed it up just like I always do. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Right now they're not doing shit for me, just they're making me feel weak. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Your truth isn't my truth, so what is true? How can we trust answers that we can't prove? You wanted me to love you, but I was too fucked up to trust you, and so I messed it up just like I always do. I wish that my my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. Right now they're not doing shit for me, they're making me feel weak. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high. I wish that my tears would crystallize, turn into something to get me high.